No, you're not seeing things, ladies and gentlemen. I am back for the second time tonight here on Sportswire Radio, and I'm a little bit behind because I said I'd be on here about 15 minutes early, but I had an issue with my USB cable because if you heard me yesterday and earlier, as we honored Kurt Acid into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, I felt that my USB cable sounded a little bit off, but we'll see how I sound tonight. But I'm here with my main man who has been our top wrestling analyst here on Sportswire Radio for quite a while, and he does a great job for us here. All things related to the world of wrestling. He dabbled in it. He did a little bit of training. He's also the host of the Hockey Fan Chat. He's got his Washington Capitals on one side of his mind. The other side, what's going on with CM Punk and what's going on in the world of WWE on the road to WrestleMania. That is none other than Mr. Randy Dillon. Randy, how are you? I know it's kind of weird on a Wednesday night. We're usually not together, but I was busy Monday night because I was with the GTS US and IC champion, Mr. Rad Dad Radley Belmont, who is, of course, of the number 7 wrestling company in the world, GTS, and that is Grimm's Toy Show. And I was out of action, but now I'm here with you, and hope we're doing well. And if I'm out there, if you're listening to us, let me know how I sound because I changed my USB cable. Found I didn't sound too good earlier on the air. But Randy, how you doing? And good to be with you.
Always a pleasure, Tom, for you to let me on the show. It's WrestleMania week. I don't know about you, but I'm excited for what they say the biggest WrestleMania possible.
Ever. Yeah, they say like this is supposed to be it. This is supposed to be the big one. This is the mothership. And it's funny. I have a feeling that people are going to ask me to do different things over the weekend. I'm like, nope, don't do it. It was funny. I even got somebody asked me today. I don't want to say what it was. They were like, can you do me a favor? And I'm like, okay, what time? And it was like, before midnight Friday. I'm like, nope, I'm on Sportswire. Don't bother me. Go find somebody else. So obviously, I'm excited. You're excited. The world is excited. So, I mean, where are we in terms of where we're going to Friday? Obviously, there's one more show left when it comes to WWE on this road to WrestleMania. And give me your thoughts on how Monday Night Raw went.
Monday Night Raw, I think it was another great show. I think higher to what maybe TBK expectation was to mine, but it was another good
We'll
show.
hear from him Friday. Obviously, big shout out to him. He's on assignment, and we'll hear from the coach, I have no doubt.
Yeah, but I thought it was the perfect go-home show you needed for WrestleMania. They set the tone with Roman and The Rock. They had Seth come out to challenge Solo. I thought they did a lot of good things with the tag team match. Rhea Ripley and Becky. I like how they built Sami Zayn up. I wish we got more of Jimmy and Jay confrontation coming up there. I think also what they did well is the excitement level. Like I don't think we thought last year's WrestleMania was exciting. This year WrestleMania,
Yeah, I mean, it's different years. Like in 2021, it was like we were still in the middle of COVID, and WWE was doing a live show, and it was great. I mean, some people had gone on with their lives, others were still kind of. That's one thing. So 2021 was a different thing. 2022 was like we were just about to be normal, but still weren't, but we were pretty much there, right? Then last year, obviously, there was excitement, but there was really excitement in I would say, I don't know, 2 matches, maybe 3 matches, give or take. But this year, there's several matches that I could honestly say, you know what? I want to watch that match. I'm looking forward to, you have Becky and Rhea, Uso versus Uso. You have the whole situation with Logan Paul, Randy Orton, Kevin Owens. You have the 2 main events, night 1, night 2. I mean, you've got so many things that you could say, you know what? I really want to watch. You get the whole situation with Bailey. You've got this now 6 women's tag match with Jade Cargill, as you mentioned. I mean, there's a lot of things I could honestly say, you know what? I really want to go out there and watch that. And I think that speaks to what you're saying.
Oh, absolutely. And we can't forget all the promo work Drew McIntyre has done.
Oh, yes. Obviously, with Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins and CM Punk, which I was going to get to. So I was going to get there because he's always in his own category. And he had a lot to say this week. No surprise.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, CM Punk, listen, I told this to my friend Tom. He literally took a stick of dynamite and threw it at AEW. And it's funny because their show is called Dynamite.
I think that was probably Punk really doing that on purpose. Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good thing. And let me say hello to some people because a lot of people want to say, I want to say to my buddies out there in Alabama, the Alliance Wrestling League had another great show on Monday, and they've got some great new entrance music. You can check it out on their Instagram channel. You can also follow them on YouTube at Alliance Wrestling League. They're closing in on 500 subscribers, so hit that sub button if you're there and Go support the guys. They've got so many great talents. They actually had a guy that wrestled for them, defending a championship in another promotion, and then kind of flew back into a time machine or traveled onto a plane and defended that same championship in another promotion on the same day. Kind of the modern day Rick Rude, and they have him there in their company. So shout out to the guys in the Alliance Wrestling, of course, ADT and certainly Hillbilly Tilly are in our Hall of Fame alongside you, Randy. Ethan Sorensen, how are you guys doing today? Well, I mean, weather-wise, it's been completely abominable in New York, but I'm live on Sportzwire Radio, so all is forgotten. And I want to say hello to my buddy Michael Christian, who was here with us a little while ago, and we got a chance to share in the honoring of the late, great Kurt Acid. We put him into our Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame and honored him on his birthday today. But Ethan has a question, which I want to hear your thoughts on. I have a question, Tom. What are your thoughts on the Bloodline attacking Cody and Seth after Rollins' match with Solo? What do you want to say on that?
I think that match, it really clarified what we've been talking about with the coach and TBK saying there's going to be people coming in to the match with Cody. We don't know who, and we know the internet is going rumor rim from Goldust, MJF.
I was listening to our friends Chris Belcher and Andy York, and they were talking about, like what we said, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and, John Cena. And I was hearing, our other friends and other podcasts on our internet radio station, and they were kind of guessing. So it's a big guessing game right now.
Exactly. The one thing I was just confused with at the end of the match, at the end of Raw, was why didn't no one? There was still a match going on. Why didn't no one pin Seth Rollins? Because if Bloodline ruled, anything goes. We never got a conclusion to the match. That's the only thing I was a little confused with.
You know what? That's a good question. I mean, I guess that's kind of like when you watch a TV show and there's supposed to be an ending and you don't get the ending, and they kind of just it happens from time to time. And they would say if you're those who are out there to celebrate Easter, maybe that would be your Easter egg to kind of look for. I don't know. I mean, that's a good question though.
No, but I definitely, Ethan, I thought it was good. I think, listen, we are seeing The Rock and Roman Reigns, and I think for more The Rock, we are seeing I've said this, Tom, we were robbed in 2003 of Hollywood Rock. It was such a short skid we got of him. We got a little bit of him with Hogan.
Yeah, 2 months, 3 months. We had the Austin, Rock, and Goldberg, and that was it.
And that was it. And now, we are seeing 21 years later, what we didn't see in 2003, and it's still on point. And I think we're going to see more of this come down the line even after Mania.
I agree with you 1,000% on that. It was funny though, because I was listening to another one of our podcasts, a buddy of ours, BC Hunter, who hosts the Wrestling with the Truth podcast, actually also a fellow Canadian, but he's in Nova Scotia, the other basically end of Canada. So you're in a different part, but he was talking on his podcast, which we've been playing the last couple of days, and he was saying, well, maybe there's a way you do this that, Cody gets his uppings, but then they go maybe the Rock and Roman, or maybe Cody gets beat up so much that it sets up something else after night 2, and he was kind of mapping it out here, almost in a way leaving the possibility of Roman still retaining. I mean, I have another theory that I heard out there from somebody else that's a friend of the show, which I'll certainly get maybe your opinion on. But what do you say to some of those takes?
So, Tom, I know last year when we did the Rumble show, I said Cody was going to win, and you changed my mind. This year,
I did.
I'm 100% sure Cody is going to win because 2 factors. One, he just signed a new contract.
Yes, I did see that. Correct. Yes.
And second, we talked about you build someone up this much. And Cody has become the face of WWE, where a lot of people thought he was going to be early in his career. He is now the face of this company. He's not like your John Cena, where people like him or hate him. Everyone agree he is the man. They cheer for him to get the biggest reaction. Since Steve Austin? You can't.
Yeah, I think that's. I'm trying to think. I don't know if Batista would have qualified. Batista had a good period where I think the people liked him. Rey Mysterio, champion, and they didn't quite have that. I mean, maybe Daniel Bryan for a brief moment in time, but in terms of just somebody that transcends all of that, yeah, Cody's probably the first one since the Rock and Austin.
Exactly. I don't think you can screw this up by not having Cody win. And then I have said this many times. The story for Roman Reigns as the champion at this point is come to the end. It's like a book. He's on his final chapter of this book. There's going to be another book coming up next with Roman Reigns. But for this chapter of him running the bloodline and stuff, being champion, it's done. There's nothing more to be written. We've seen everything at this point.
You're sure? So you feel kind of, last year you were like, we were talking about it, and I remember you were like, I think Cody's going to win, but then we spoke about it, and it was like, it wasn't certain almost. There was still a really good possibility, and well, it was kind of Captain Obvious. Solo came in and attacked Cody, and Roman found a way to retain, and that's kind of left us to where we are. So you're sure? You're confident?
I'm 100%.
I'm going to ask you Friday. I'm going to ask you off the air Friday.
I'm
not
going to change
the same question.
You have my word. If not, I'm coming to New York and taking you to an Islander game.
Oh, well, that actually might mean something now, because the Islanders are actually fighting your Capitals for that last playoff spot along with the Flyers. Maybe 2 spots for 3 teams. Different conversation for a different time. But, I'm going to give you another theory, and we'll get to more comments in a second. We'll talk about some more matches. But one of our friends of the show, Jack Delta, of course, is a well-known wrestler in backyard and underground wrestling. And he had put a theory that, Cody will win, but he actually thinks that Cody could get cashed in on, presumably by Damian Priest. That's an interesting theory, because he said Cody's really a chaser, and then that gives Cody another kind of layer to this story, and it kind of, removes the bloodline, like you said, but that he thinks that Cody will win, but his moment will be taken away from him, and he'll get cashed in. What do you think to that theory? Because I think that's kind of a clever theory that Jack Delta had, and I was just wondering what you thought.
It is a clever theory by Mr. Delta, but I'm going to disagree, because I was just listening to Cody's interview on the MMA Hour with Ariel Darari.
Okay, what did you hear from it?
Cody said something at the beginning of the interview was really interesting. He said he talked to John Cena last year after he lose that match, and he said, hold yourself as the champion even without your belt. So like your merchandise sale, your ticket sales, all that kind of stuff, a live event. And I think Cody has he's done that for the last year. He pretty much has been kind of the unsung champion of WWE for the last year.
Well, he's been the guy. I mean, Roman, and we know obviously Roman's had some health issues. Certainly was put back out there in the light. But if you think about it with Cody, he has been the guy that, has carried the mantle for the company. Even though Roman has been the champion, Cody's been the guy that's really been out there front and center over the last year.
Oh, absolutely. It reminds me of when Lesnar was the champion in 2017-18, where
the part-time champion.
He was the guy holding the belt, but there was someone else, the unsung champion. Now there's a lot of different people who could have been that. It wasn't Roman Reigns. Debatable at that time, but different era of wrestling.
AJ Styles was in the discussion. I mean, there was
Seth Rollins, Bray Wyatt. You had a lot of guys.
Cena was still around at the time. I mean, you had Roman Reigns, you mentioned, Seth Rollins. I mean, you had Dean Ambrose still at the time. And so you had a number of guys that were workmen, and Brock Lesnar was this guy that we didn't see on TV. And, thank God we got away from that era, right, of having champions never show up on TV. I mean, I know Roman, at least we see him every so often, but Brock Lesnar, we never saw, period. I mean, that was,
Exactly, yeah.
Let's hope to never go back to that era again.
No. But I think Cody has proven it. He is the really the champion at this point. The only thing to do at this point to really declare that is putting the belt on him, the title on him at this point.
But you don't think that if it was a cash-in, that would be clever and keeping him still trying to chase the story, and that moment's denied, and now he has to go fight another layer, and it's actually somebody else? I mean, you don't think that would be clever at all?
No. The reason is, I have said this, whoever beats Roman, it needs to be a person that can ascend to the next level. And I'll give an example with the Undertaker streak. I'm on the opposite end saying Brock Lesnar. I know we shouldn't say his name, but Mr. Lesnar.
I think we could say his name now. I think it seems like we can say his name. I mean, the other guy that Coach always says, I don't feel
Shane
we can
McMahon's
say his name.
dad.
Yeah, there you go. Good one. But I think Brock Lesnar, it seems like we can say his name again. So you can say his name. Go for it.
Brock Lesnar beating the Undertaker streak. I was on one of the few people saying that was the right call, because at the time in WWE, they didn't have anyone whoever beat that streak, you need to make sure they can go to that next level. And they didn't have anyone around that time, other than maybe a few. And I know Taker went on Stone Cold podcast saying, "Yeah, I'd rather save it to someone else, get Roman," but Roman wasn't even close to that level.
No, Roman at that level was,
it would have been a disaster. Cody is at that level. And
well, I hate to say it, but could you? I think he had just left the company by then, but could you have gone with Punk?
Punk would have been an interesting tactic, but I think Punk, with his at that time, maturity-wise, with everything that happened, I don't think he would have been. I think it would have just pushed his ego to another level.
I understand that. I mean, I think Lesnar. I mean, he was believable. I don't know if he needed it necessarily, but I understand the point. So based off that, you think that if Cody wins, he's not having his moment denied.
No, exactly. And the reason, Priest, I honestly think Priest is going to cash it in. I know TBK and Chris had mentioned this. Cash it in during the Seth Rollins and McIntyre match at this point. I think he's going to cash it in there, because the reason I say that, they just announced a show in Glasgow,
I did see that. Yes, I heard that we have a bunch of podcasts we're playing for WrestleMania week, and they mentioned that. Yes, Chris Belcher and Andy York mentioned it. Yep.
This tells me Drew McIntyre has to sign if they're doing another show in his hometown of Scotland at this point.
But I'm still perplexed. I still don't know if he signed. I don't
know either. But you can't put him on the poster and do a show in Scotland without him.
Is this whole? I hate to use these terms because we do a lot of wrestling coverage on Sportswire. We speak with a lot of people over the world, but is somebody working a lot of these internet wrestling fans? I mean, not necessarily us, because I think on Sportswire, it's pretty well known. We cover a lot of things, and I don't particularly say I'm in that field necessarily as an internet wrestling fan. But do you think somebody's trying to work this kind of internet wrestling crowd, like the AEW crowd with this Drew McIntyre thing? What do you think on that? Just a side note.
I don't think so. I honestly believe either his deal is very close to expiring here and they're finishing up signing it, and it's just going to slide under the nose because this is the perfect time to get it signed in with WrestleMania season. You just signed Cody, everything else going, and you can kind of get.
But I feel like with Cody, did you ever really think that Cody wasn't not re-signing? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Cody just left AEW. I don't think he could go back with a straight face into that company. I mean, but Drew McIntyre to me is a completely different situation.
Oh no, you're absolutely right there. Cody and Cody says in the interview, where he is now, this is where you'll want to be, the main event, the guy, and he's absolutely here. Drew McIntyre, I think he's the same place. He wanted to be the guy, one of the top stars of the company, and he was during the COVID area, and unfortunately it didn't get exposed enough during that time. And I think now,
sure. We spoke about it here. I mean, just it's like you look back in wrestling history. We always say it. It's like I don't want to say a black cloud, but it is kind of like a weird. It's almost like if you're a hockey fan and you remember the lockout in 2004, 2005. Not that we had a lockout in wrestling, but it's kind of to me the same thing, if that makes sense.
Exactly. So I think for that, and everything they've done for him, the shirts, the promos they've done, how they've really built up, and this and how he's going with Punk as well. It's like all the signs are indicating he's staying with the company because there's work for him to be done. It's not like in the past where we've seen superstars leave the company after their contract expires and they kind of push them aside, or after they're done.
I just think the whole situation's to me so bizarre in the fact that he has a contract that's expiring, and as you say, he hasn't re-signed, but you're putting him in a world title match, and
I know it's one of those things.
Just bizarre as my mic goes out there for a second. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I mean, like I said, that's why I asked the question. Do you think somebody's working somebody?
I don't think it's a work. I think maybe earlier in the year there were discussions, but I think Punk's injury played a factor in this. And I think everything he's done up to that point had maybe pushed things to think, okay, let's get you resigned, but we'll see how things go, because they could have done a show anywhere else. Heck, they could have done the Saudi Arabia show during that time, or a week before, or 2 weeks before. But the fact that they're doing a show in Scotland and he's on the poster makes me think he has to be with the company up at least up to that point. After that, who knows? But I
Yeah, I
think
don't know the details of it as we're here with Randy Dillon speaking all things related to the world of WWE, AEW, getting you ready for the road to WrestleMania. I don't know the details of when it expires, but I just think the whole thing is bizarre. And I want to say hello to one of our buddies, Ron Franklin, who's sometimes here with us on Friday nights. And Ron is obviously ready. He's in the state of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, but he's not going to WrestleMania because the tickets are through the roof. And it was funny. I think Coach had asked me last week when we were on the air, or would you go to Brooklyn for Barclays Center? And obviously I didn't go because we had Rad Dad Radley Belmont, who's the GTS IC and US champion. And what an honor it was. Again, he works for a company that has 1.3 million subscribers on YouTube. So to have him was a massive deal. And we got a lot of subscribers on YouTube from that. And I'm grateful for that. But the tickets just for Barclays Center in Brooklyn here, I think for nosebleeds was like $250 for basically on Vivid seats. So you can imagine with WrestleMania, it's got to be tenfold that. So Ron is there. Ron says, I will be going. He's going to the kickoff on Friday. So there you go. So what time is the kickoff? And I heard The Rock is tomorrow, 4:00, right? He's going to be somewhere, if I'm not mistaken. And what time is the kickoff on Friday? And what are you excited for most there at the kickoff? And hopefully you get some pictures for us and tag me in them. And I'd like to share them. 5 p.m. Eastern time. So that's pretty cool. And who are you looking forward to meeting most at the kickoff? I'd be curious, is there somebody that's on your bucket list? I'd be curious for the audience if there's somebody, Ron, that you're looking for. It'd be so cool, Randy, if he was there long enough and he was like on site and said, hey, it's Ron Franklin from Sportswire Radio. Just want to tell you I'm here at kickoff and here's what's going on. But I don't think kickoff's going to go on for 5 hours. But I'd be curious, Ron, and what he's most excited to see Rhea. Okay. I know you're a big Rhea fan. That's a good one.
maybe we'll see Ron on the YouTube show on the kickoff. Who knows? We might somehow catch a glimpse of him there.
Oh, that's a good point. I know WWE also, side note, has a new show on Twitter, WWE Speed, where you have a match and it's only 3 minutes or more. I think that's kind of something cool that's added else here. So that's another thing that I wanted to add up here. Okay, so we'll certainly see. You're confident on that. Fair enough. Speaking of championships, I got to get your thoughts on Gunther and the IC title. I mean, what do you I'm sure we'll talk more about it. Maybe we'll do some predictions on Friday, but the way we left off on Raw, what do you think there?
This is really interesting. I don't see Gunther losing the IC title because, again, we talked about this. Sami Zayn, he's like the underdog, but he can never get over that finish line.
We spoke about that a few times on the show. He just can't get over the finish line.
Yeah, so he just for some reason he's like Bruce Boudreaux pretty much of the wrestling, where he's always good, but when it comes to that big event, he can't get to that next step. So
I was gonna say Peter Laviolette, but he did win one Stanley Cup, if I recall correctly. So I have to take him off those. Alain Vigneault would be another name. Alain Vigneault with the Canucks, the Rangers. Took a lot of teams to the postseason, but never quite got to the finish line. But Boudreaux's a good one. That's a good one.
So I think we're gonna see an epic performance for Sami, and I think this might push Sami up the rank, but I don't see Gunther getting pinned one-on-one by Sami Zayn.
So when is that moment, though? When is that moment that, we've spoken so much about Roman over the years, but when is the moment for Gunther, you think?
Well, hopefully it's not Damian Priest cashing in, because then it just really...
Well, that would be goofy. I mean, there's one company we just had on Sportswire that kind of did that here, and I'll get to some comments in a second, but I don't know if that would be the move I'd want to see. What do you say to that?
No, it's not the right move. Like, if they want to take Gunther off the title and still make him strong, the best would be a triple threat where someone pins someone else. Like, if Chad Gable in the match, then I think it'd be more believable for Chad Gable to win or Sami Zayn to win. But in a one-on-one match, you look at the list of people Gunther has beaten from Sheamus, Drew McIntyre, Bronson Reed, Cat Gable, Shelton Benjamin, Riddle, Mustafa Ali, Braun Strowman, Ricochet, all these guys and probably more. Like, some of these guys are former world champions. And
absolutely. I mean, Drew McIntyre, we've been speaking about, and he's, one of the biggest names in the sport right now. You mentioned Sheamus. Sheamus is a guy that's arguably a WWE Hall of Famer. I mean, there's a lot of names, on that list. Shelton Benjamin's a guy that's, very close to being a Hall of Famer,
Kofi
probably.
Kingston put in the mix.
Kofi Kingston. I mean, you can go down the list. I mean, some Braun Strowman's a former world champion. We forget about that, but he's a former world heavyweight champion. So I got a couple questions here. Ron says he'll be posting pictures on Instagram. Good deal on that. Got an Ethan Sorensen question. Honestly, Tom, in my opinion, I think that CM Punk is going to pull a Batista move, and he'll pull off the brace, and he'll say, "I know something you don't know," and he'll attack Drew McIntyre. Now, TBK has been saying that here in the past. I mean, I was watching his interview the other day, and he still had that thing on, but I don't know. What do you say to that? Is there validity? TBK had said that a few times. I don't know. What do you say?
I don't think it's a fix. I think this adds more to the story when we do get the Punk and McIntyre feud, where it's going to add more concentration between confusion and stuff between McIntyre and Punk, and ultimately might lead to either Seth retaining or ultimately Damian Priest cashing in that match to become the world heavyweight champion there, because Punk was saying he's been beaten up a lot. The number of injuries he's gone through over the last few years on top of that, and how he was explaining this tricep injury and as well. So he had one in the past. I have to think listen, they're trying to keep him safe because they know this guy's money and this guy's television when he comes back.
Did you see the thing on Twitter where it showed, I think since he came to AEW, that he's actually been injured more than half the time that he actually is returned to the ring, which I think is such a crazy stat there. I think it's 51% of the time since he returned in summer of 2021, he's either not wrestled or been injured. I mean, what does that tell you?
I believe it. Ric Flair says this. I've said it many times. A wrestler's worst enemy is time off, and
he missed 7 years. I know he did the whatever you want to call it, the UFC run, but he missed a lot of time. And when he left, he had to have been in his mid-30s, and now what is he, 45? I mean, it's a lot of time to miss, and all of a sudden to try to come back, and so. I kind of agree with you. I don't think he's faking the injury, but I don't know what you expect to get from him when he does return, because we expect him to return, right? I mean, I think I was listening to one of the podcasts that we have, and they were saying SummerSlam is a maybe, right? Is that what we kind of hear? Yeah, SummerSlam is.
We're looking at.
All right. I mean, but you don't think, though, there's any validity in what Ethan's saying?
I could see him getting maybe involved and maybe him getting attacked. I could see him maybe trying to attack someone, but then get thrown in the corner or something, or take a finisher. But I don't see him coming out, taking off the brace, and just going nuts and hitting a GPS.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, TBK had mentioned it. Okay, so speaking of Punk, let's talk about Punk, actually, because we always talk about Punk on this platform. I knew that because I've known you a while now, and I feel like we've been talking wrestling together for almost 3 years, about 2.5 to 3 years, and he's probably been my number one topic. So obviously he had this shoot. He spoke about a number of different topics. He spoke about Jungle Boy Jack Perry. He spoke about Tony Khan. He spoke about AEW as a whole. He spoke about WWE and returning. And I'm curious, so what did you think about what he had to say and, some of the key points?
The one thing with CM Punk, I think you, as someone who loves wrestling, is he's unfiltered. If you watch the interview between him and Cody, night and day difference. And he, I think, literally said everything we've been wanting to hear about AEW. I think anyone knew that when this guy was going to be asked a question, he was going to say as much as he can. And I think his experience in AEW, he did not like it. I think it might have been worse than his time in WWE with the politics. And that's 2 years. Because think about the whole Hangman Adam Page promo where because he said in that interview, they talked about the promo, and it put the end with him decking Hangman, or Hangman decking him, and they changed it. And he said, if I was going to hit him, I was going to knock him out. He talked about how he brought up the issues with Tony, all the issues, and how they never got resolved.
He called him a nice guy, but not a good boss, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, and I think he's right on the assessment. Now we are hearing one side of the story. Are we going to hear Jake Perry's side of the story? Are we going to hear?
Did you hear what Bully Ray had to say about him? He talked
Yep.
about that, he tried to introduce himself to him and he gave him a type of response and, basically that he showed disrespect to a veteran. I mean, I don't know if that's something that I would want to take his side on for, but what did you make of that?
Listen, Bully Ray is not the most popular person in the wrestling world. He is an asshole. I can attest to that because I went out at WrestleMania 32 Access. I was going to take a picture of him, the Dudley, and the guy was on his phone, not even looking at me. I was like, what the hell, man? But I thought he was playing his character, but who knows?
Oh, it's Bully Ray, you're saying?
Yeah.
I got to be honest. I've heard that. I don't want to go out and say things, but I've heard from other people that he kind of. I'm not a fan of him on the radio. Not that I listen to a lot of Busted Open anymore, but I've listened to it in the past before we've had this and such. And I can't say I'm a big fan of his. I respect his career, what he's done, but in terms of the personality, I could see some of what you said. Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, I don't think he's a nice person. He's a jerk, probably, but you have to respect what he's done in the ring. For
sure.
One of the greatest tag teams of all time. And I honestly think if Impact had more television during 2013, more media attention around the 8th and 8th, that could probably go down as one of the greatest, a great faction, but the exposure never got there. And all that.
Yeah, I agree that I think that the timing of that was very poor. And I think that was lost. So, but anything else on Punk that you thought? Obviously, he spoke a lot about the AEW business plan. He talked a lot about the product, the company, his return to WWE. Any other, big notes that you want to share before we move on to a few other things? Certainly, I'll talk about AEW. If you caught that, I'll talk about, maybe Drew McIntyre's eulogy. I'll talk about, anything else in the bloodline and such. And I have some questions I'm going to get to about Bray Wyatt. I have some questions on the screen here, but anything else you'd like to share?
The one thing with Punk, I think he's hitting a lot of people's marks about AEW, where the company doesn't care about their profit. They don't care about selling arena. They don't care about being a profitable business at this point.
How could they be profitable? There's no way they could be at this point. They don't have live gates. The ratings are down. We spoke about that. I just don't know how they could be.
They care more about the 5-star matches. They care about more of the big spot, the unforgettable moments that everyone can remember. And listen, I know you want to be a part of this. This is one thing I remember Bruce Hart telling me when I was first training back in 2011 for a wrestler. He said doing these big spots all the time takes away from the match because the crowd then you're making them expect.
I hear that all the time from wrestlers. We just honored Kurt Acid, tonight, and the guys that were on. This guy, wrestled Jerry the King Lawler. He was traveled up and down the scene, and and he always said to the younger talents, you don't need to do the big spots. It always seems to be the theme. Keep it simple.
Exactly, and I think that's really the difference between WWE and AEW. Where AEW, you're always going to get a big spot, whether it's someone going through a table with jumping off a ladder, going through broken, shattered glass all over the place, Darby Allin, or you have W put them classic matches, but you're not going to have any big spots. And I think for AEW, they're more of just getting that wow moment and getting on Dave Meltzer 5-star reporting.
But that's not the whole internet radio. Internet radio is great, but you got to go and get mainstream coverage. And I think that is certainly we'll come back to. I want to go to my. Yeah.
Sorry, that's the one thing I just want to add there. And I think the Punk said this much as well. The one thing he said, as long as the Khans are putting in money, it's going to be there. I think until Tony Khan's dad stepped in and saying enough, make it profitable, it's not going to change.
Oh, I think that's everybody would agree about that he's got billions of dollars and, they're putting money in. They seem to be committed still to the world of wrestling. And, I think the big question still is where does AEW go if they don't get renewed by Turner? That's a big question. But let me get to my buddy Big Tex, who I'm looking forward to returning to the ring for our friends over at DBW, Dominant Breakout Wrestling. They're getting ready for their season to start, Apocalypse, I believe, in the next week. But let me get to what he has to say. Quick question. Watching the Bray documentary and the ending scene, who do you think, if Uncle Howdy comes back, who does he go after first? That's a good question. Did you watch the documentary?
I can't, for some reason up here in Canada, I can't find it somewhere. I'm hoping to find a link
Do you
somewhere I can
get Peacock where you are? What's
No,
that?
we don't get Peacock, unfortunately.
Are
So
you,
we
do you
get
have
NBC,
WWE
but we
Network?
don't get Peacock.
Do you have WWE Network?
It's changed so much lately in Canada, where now everything's so messed up now. So it's really weird, but I'll hopefully find it. But I think with who Uncle Howdy will go facing is interesting. I think the obvious and easiest one would be the LA Knight, but
You stole my thunder. That was going to be my question. I was going to be like, well, who is Bray's last opponent? I would think LA Knight, right?
I think that might be down the road, but I think like, do you put him maybe against someone like Alpha Academy? Do you put him maybe someone against R-Truth? Like,
how history there with Bray and Randy Orton?
Yep, you got Randy Orton there as well, and so there's a lot of different opportunities. I think with Uncle Howdy, if you want to keep the legacy of Bray Wyatt going, I think that with Bo Dallas, who is going to be Uncle Howdy, is going to be playing that role. You want to keep his legacy going, but I think for him, because he's such a new character and Bray Wyatt's not there, you have to build him up. So who do you start off with to get him built up in that right way?
But do you go and really go for a monumental feud, or do you, like you said, work him up a bit?
I think the best is working because I think you do have talent. Like, you got guys like your R-Truth, you got guys like your Miz, you got other people like your Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods you can work with to help build him up.
And I have a comment from our buddy Ethan Sorensen who heard it. He says, honestly, Tom, and I want to thank everybody for watching. We're at 31 people. So even at midnight on a Wednesday or now Thursday in New York, we actually have a lot of people watching. Honestly, Tom, if the WWE does bring back Uncle Howdy, it would be a great way to honor Bray Wyatt. I want to ask you a quick question. I know Coach mentioned the Hall of Fame. It's a good topic for a few minutes. Did you think that Bray Wyatt should have been inducted into the Hall of Fame this year, or were you okay with just his father being inducted? Where do you fall on that?
I'm okay with just his father being inducted, RS Mike Ronda, because he deserves it. Like, he put a lot of great work.
Oh yeah, I mean, he had a great career. Midnight Express. Tag team champion multiple times. $1 Million Man. He had a great career, no question. I mean, I always thought, why wasn't he in the Hall of Fame before? He was a 5-time tag team champion in WWE. He had two pretty solid runs, and I think also did some backstage work in the company. So had a pretty solid career.
100%. I think when we first talked about this, I said wait till the following year to put in the Hall of Fame because I think it's still so fresh. It hasn't been not even a year since he passed, and there's still a lot to go on.
I think 8 months. I think it's only 8 months.
Yeah, 8 months. I think the documentary. I think Uncle Howdy coming out would play more of a tribute to him, and seeing this documentary as well. So I think a little bit more time. So I think I don't have a problem.
And we're assuming Bo Dallas is in the gimmick and he's coming back, or what's
I would have to assume it only makes sense because I feel even for Bo Dallas himself, like he got a rough deal coming up. Like he was in NXT, the youngest NXT champion, and his gimmicks they never worked. And he
never. I don't know. I don't know what it was, but he never quite. Kind of reminds me of Ted in a way. Almost reminds me of Mr. Perfect's son in a way, Curtis Axel. He had Paul Heyman, but he never just got there. He was there, but it never really went anywhere.
It kind of get me thinking some of these guys in NXT, like a Braun Breaker. Like he's been in NXT now for 2 years, and he's finally coming up to the main roster. I wonder for a guy like Bo Dallas, even Curtis Axel, like, if these guys would have been sent down to NXT in 2016, 17, stayed there for a few years to work on things, what would have worked out for them?
And I do want to ask you a couple of questions on the Hall of Fame. Would you want Alexa Bliss to be a part of that?
For Bray Wyatt, I think I could see her being part of it because especially near the end of her career, but I think it would most likely be Bo inducting Bray if he does get inducted.
And for her to return to TV, should there be an Uncle Howdy? Would you want her?
I think it would make the perfect sense for her because I think her Lily character, like, that was some great work she did. And that character really was evolving. I thought they could, when she lost her match to Charlotte in 2021, I really thought they were going to go on a weird character angle of her having mental breakdown, try to calm her down and try to bring her back to normal. But you still have these like flashbacks and all that, which I think they were
Mhm.
pointing at. But I know her pregnancy and other things came up. But I
Sure.
definitely see this could be an opportunity for her to return.
I want to get to a couple of comments here. First of all, I want to say hello to our buddy Mr. TBK, who makes a great point and always good to hear from him. Couldn't sleep, woke up at the perfect time, it seems. Well, I'm always on Sportswire, right? So you can have a voice by the time tomorrow rolls around. But speculation is that Uncle Howdy Bo Dallas, he says, will help Cody. Apparently, there's a lot of family history between the Roads and Rotundas. Before I come back to Big Tex, what do you make of that? It's a name haven't been thrown out there. We can certainly, throw it around on Friday's show, but what do you say to that?
Oh goodness, seems like every day you add someone to this list of who's gonna help Cody. It's
Are
just
you going to
like,
help him by any chance? You got some wrestling skills still,
yeah,
no?
me and Bruce Hart might show up down there. No, like there's so like the list. I think with the history of the Rhodes family, and I think as well because most likely they're not going to get Dustin because every week now you're seeing
Yeah, I think
Dustin
we've been talking
advertised.
about it, but I just feel like I think when I know people are going to say, well, Jim Ross is a company man, but he said he wasn't coming on his podcast. You know, I just
It,
don't see it.
exactly. So I think you're going to have to look outside the box, like Austin, Cena, DDP, the Rotundas. Like I know they have somewhat of a connection, but I don't see it's enough connection at this point to help. It has to be someone really close to Cody. That's why I think Diamond Dallas Page makes more sense, and then Austin because of history with The Rock, and then same with Cena as well.
I just feel like DDP, with all due respect to DDP, and I know the relationship with him and Dusty and his relationship with Cody, but maybe it's the age. I don't feel like he's on that same level as an Austin or a Cena. I mean,
No, he never. I think with DDP is he WCW's career and what he accomplished in his career stuff at his age is remarkable. But I think his W run was just so flat. Like he never got that traction in W to become such a mainstone name. Where Cena and Austin, they're just, of course.
yeah, I just don't. I think if you're going to make a moment, I just don't think to me DDP. I just don't think he's on that level. I mean, DDP had a great, like I said, great run in WCW, but I don't think he's on that level. And TBK corrected him. I would say that WWE should have Bo Dallas as the Fiend just to honor his best friend. But thank you, TBK, for correcting Ethan. We're going to certainly give Ethan a pass there, and thank you, TBK, for that. But I got a good question from Big Tex, and let's get to it. Could we see Uncle Howdy coming out to help Cody? Think about the history, and I think he said the same thing as TBK. So, but you also mentioned Husky Harris. Same thing here. Same thing. Get the same point.
The only thing like, is Uncle Howdy coming up to help Cody is it sets that speculation of will Uncle Howdy and Cody have a run in. And again, I'm going to say that I don't feel putting Uncle Howdy in a feud so soon, or even the speculation getting him coming up with. We don't even know what kind of a character Uncle Howdy's going to be. We've seen like these images and pictures and what's in the documentary, but we never seen the actual character of Uncle Howdy to begin with. So I just feel like him making this appearance, it could be detrimental to the character itself.
Is there a lot of what if, and that's why people have an interest to see the character? Maybe.
Absolutely, there is so much what if here and how the character. And I think there was plans for this character when Bray was supposed to be there, but they got scrapped. So I think,
Fair. We'll
and there's
never know. I think TBK mentioned it when he did his podcast to tribute Bray Wyatt. I think it was him and Peter Richards. He can correct me on that. They spoke a little bit about that. I mean, that's a fair point. Let me ask you though on the Hall of Fame. I know Coach brought it up. We never really got a chance to talk about it. Were you happy with this year's class? A lot of people speculated Lex Luger would finally get in. We see Leah Maivia. We see some other names, Thunderbolt Patterson. I mean, we see, Mike Rotunda. I mean, we didn't get IRS, but we got obviously the Midnight Express, and Barry Windham gets in as a part of that, and that actually I think makes Barry Windham a two-time Hall of Fame because I think he got in with the Horsemen, if I'm not mistaken. Years back, I think he was a part of that, wasn't he? Inducted into that
I'll have
class.
to
I
go
think
back and check, but
that's
possibly.
I feel like he was, but I mean, were you happy with this year's class? Was there anybody that you thought should have been? Obviously, Paul Heyman is the signature one in Philadelphia. Roman Reigns is inducting him, and any things on the Hall of Fame class you want to add? I think we really never spoke about it much.
The Hall of Fame is always such an interesting case because there's always people you say who deserve to be in, and then there's other guys who have been around for so long for the bit in wrestling business in the case, because you look at the WWE Hall of Fame, it's not just really the WWE Hall of Fame. It's pretty much kind of like the wrestling Hall of Fame from like the early 80s, 90s, and 2000 with all the territories they have bought up, what WWE has bought up. And there's guys like who deserve it. Like if you're looking at a Philadelphia one, like definitely I could say Tommy Dreamer might have been.
Tommy Dreamer to me is just, I think that's a like a Lex Luger, a glaring omission, especially Tommy Dreamer, because he was the heart and soul of ECW, and he was also in WWE for a long time. And, he's been a part of other companies, and that's to me one of the biggest glaring omissions, I think, of the WWE Hall of Fame that's left, I think.
Exactly, yeah. So like they're definitely talk there. I know Owen being the Hall of Fame, that's always.
Well, I think that's an issue with Martha Hart.
I think with her relationship now with AEW.
And what she said about Vince McMahon the other day, I think I heard her in an interview. I don't think that's happening. She talked about that she wasn't surprised. She heard all these different things about the company. I just think that I would be very surprised.
Yeah. So you look at really the Hall of Fame, like all the big names from like the 90s in now have kind of gotten in there.
Except
like the Macho Man, the Warriors,
British Bulldog got in a few years ago. Yep. Razor Ramon. But Lex Luger is the one that's one of the biggest omissions, is Lex Luger.
I think Lex Luger with the relationship with Vince, I know Triple H is running the show now, but I think there might be other things doing that. I don't know if they wanted to bring him in or not, or maybe the thing past that's happened outside within the company. I really don't know. For the women's, I'm very surprised they still haven't inducted Victoria in the Hall of Fame. Because between two,
is Dean Malenko in the Hall of Fame?
I would have to check, but I don't think.
I think Dean Malenko is another one that's right off the top of my head. I would think Dean Malenko would be another name, because I feel like he was another guy that was so impressionable, and I'm almost feeling like he was not inducted. I don't know. Somebody can check on that, but I actually have a couple of things that are clarifying that. Thank you for the comments. Thank you, Big Tex. And I think Big Tex, we're bringing you back on as soon as Apocalypse airs. Barry Windham is a two-time Hall of Famer. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, the U.S. Express. Thank you for that. Thank you for reminding me. It is late. Yeah, Barry Windham, a two-time Hall of Famer. Yeah, I don't know if Barry Windham, you'd say two-time Hall of Famer, but, he's a two-time Hall of Famer. It's kind of like X-Pac. Do you really see X-Pac as a two-time Hall of Famer? But he's a two-time Hall of Famer. And I'm not knocking them as individuals, but would you say that their body of work dictates two-time Hall of Famer? I don't know. Let me get to TBK before I come back to Ethan. I obviously can't spoil the documentary for Randy since he hasn't seen it. All I can say is do whatever possible to watch it. It's, shall we say, eye-opening. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that you didn't spoil it, because there is people out there. And I got a good follow-up before I get to Ethan on Big Tex. I knew Dean Malenko wasn't in the Hall of Fame, and I feel like Demolition would be another good one. Yeah, Demolition. Now, weren't they a part of the lawsuit that WWE had for the concussions, and that might be why that they're not in the Hall of Fame? I think that's a good one. But yeah, Dean Malenko, to me, he was number one in the PWI 500, the man of 1,000 holes, his father, and he was a guy that worked in WWE as well. And I think Dean Malenko would be one of the other guys from the 90s that I would think, to me, should be in the Hall of Fame.
Other guy, but I think it's because he's with AEW right now, an inductee himself would be Arn Anderson. I know he's with the Four Horsemen, but as an individual, he's never been, I think, inducted in the Hall of Fame.
That's a good one. Yeah, Arn Anderson's another good one, because you would think Arn Anderson would definitely be inducted. And, let me actually get to this here before Ethan, because I want to actually ask you, because apparently AEW is starting their own Hall of Fame. Everybody's starting Hall of Fames. Because Sportswire started one. I see all these different Hall of Fames now. And obviously, God bless, but that's okay. Honestly, Tom, do you think that WWE should have a WWE OVW Hall of Fame class, like Brock Lesnar, John Cena, Randy Orton, and you're missing one, Batista?
Shelton Benjamin. Don't forget him in that class as well.
Yeah, Shelton Benjamin, good one. But those four is Lesnar, Cena, Orton, and Batista. I think they all got called up right around the same time. Yeah, but Shelton Benjamin, is right there as well, which I said Shelton Benjamin, to me, is a guy that I think probably makes the Hall of Fame. I think he's Hall of Fame worthy. I think eventually, right? Shelton Benjamin would be Hall of Fame worthy.
He's so talented, and I think for him, the fact that he got near the end of his first WWE run, got pushed in a place he didn't like, but even him coming back doing the work with the young talent and
Won a
helping them
tag team
put in.
title still with the Hurt Business. Had a
Yeah.
good.
Chad Gable, I think he won a tag team title with his. No, yeah, I think he won with something with Chad Gable when Jason Jordan got hurt. So
Yeah, I think Shelton Benjamin, is probably going to be one of those guys on the border. Obviously, speaking of AEW, talents that aren't in the Hall of Fame would be the Hardy Boys. We would think eventually the Hardy Boys would be in the Hall of Fame. And did you hear AEW actually is starting a Hall of Fame? Did you hear that actually?
I have not, but I don't know. I understand why with Sting's retirement, but you've been open for like 5 years. Wait till at least your 10-year mark. Like,
To be fair, on Sportswire, we've been open for 5. We have.
well, you're different, Tom, because you've had so many different guests and stuff.
Oh my God! If we did a list of people that have come on the platform, it's literally like I don't even know. It's probably like 1,000.
The one thing with AEW, I feel like they're not established. Like, I understand with Sting, like you want to immortalize Sting, and Sting would really be the only person to be inducted in
Jericho, you think Jericho they would want to also immortalize?
I don't think Jericho's going away anytime soon with how much ego his.
Oh no, Jericho's not. But I mean, if you had a talent that you could, from their roster, I mean, maybe you'd want to induct Arn Anderson. You mentioned Arn Anderson.
Maybe Arn Anderson, like Paul White, but really he's done 2 matches. Mark Henry, like you have all these ex-WWE guys, like you do have your own talent. Like the only you have guys like Sammy Guevara, Hangman Adam Page, but these guys are all just in the middle of their career. There's no one really there near the end of their career.
Maybe one name, Bryan Danielson.
Maybe, yeah. That'd
be one name. If I don't even know anymore how much he has left, but that would be one name you could theoretically throw in there.
I know they want to go. He's not going to retire. He's going to go. No, he said he's going to retire, but I think he might go more to a part-time schedule there as well, maybe back end. But he's only been with the company for 3 years. Like I'm looking at people that really were there with the company when it first.
Omega. Hangman Adam Page, John Moxley, Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin.
Yeah, like I'm looking at guys because I know when Impact did their Hall of Fame, it was 10. Sting was the first inductee in that company.
I think Impact's case, to me, like you said, I agree with you that Impact's case was different because Impact, they had been around longer, and I think Impact had a more established presence, but they also had a lot of talent that weren't in WWE at the time. Oh. It made sense to kind of give them a bone.
Exactly. With AEW, it's pretty much W rinse. Like Neil Villapiano and I did a show, an episode on the Hockey Fan Check with the New Jersey Devil. He did NHL coaches, your rinse, wash, and repeat. I like AEW with WWE superstars. Rinse, wash, and repeat.
Will I be hearing this episode soon?
You'll be getting it by Monday the latest.
Good, because I just got an episode. Speaking of Neil Villapiano, speaking of people that I need to induct in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame is Neil Villapiano. What a small world there. But I got a couple of comments here. Let me go with TBK's first. He got a joke. AEW deserves its own induction for fastest company burnout in wrestling history. To me, that's them going, if they can have one, well, we can too. So there. Yeah, we can have one, but I have a funny joke. I have a funny joke for some people. So the Dark Side of the Ring, AEW, whenever that'll be a doozy, right? That'll be a multiple season show, right? That would be an interesting one. And I do find it interesting, by the way, Impact is hung around. Impact, for all the people that said all those things about Impact has stood the test of time. So whatever you say about Impact, they're here, TNA. Another couple of names, Tony Schiavone. Good. Well, that would be AEW.
Tony, I could see that.
And Jerry Lynn. Jerry Lynn's another good one. Yeah, I hadn't thought of Jerry Lynn. Jerry Lynn's a guy that he had I want to say, a very good run in ECW. I don't want to say it was a great run in ECW. And he had a brief stint in WWE, Jerry Lynn, if I recall correctly. Right? A very brief stint in WWE, Jerry Lynn, I feel like. He was definitely in TNA for a while. TNA, he had a couple stints for sure in TNA. He was in Japan for a while. AEW backstage agent. Yeah, I mean, if we're doing God.
I know Brody Lee, John Huber. He would definitely be another one you induct in there as well. But
in the AEW Hall of Fame?
AEW, yeah. I don't think Luke Harper would possibly go in the W Hall of Fame. I'm not too sure, but I think.
But the AEW Hall of Fame, I would say, yeah, he means a lot to them. Jerry Lynn, if it's the AEW Hall of Fame, yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. I don't think that Jerry Lynn. I don't know if Jerry Lynn's a WWE Hall of Famer. I don't know. That's a good one. Another one, like if you have to think about it, I always go in sports. If you got to think about it, they're not Hall of Famers. Although I will say on Sportswire, I'll gladly put him in the Sportswire Hall of Fame because I would gladly do that. And Tony Schiavone, well, Tony Schiavone should be in the WWE Hall of Fame. Why not? WCW.
I don't think he's ever crossed that line. I think Tony Schiavone, the one guy in the WCW who'd never cross that line to go to work in WWE. I don't know.
Well, somebody brought up Mike Tenay. Why isn't Mike Tenay in the WWE Hall of Fame? And Jim Ross had mentioned, he had answered this question on his podcast. He said that the problem that Mike Tenay probably had was that he was never in WWE, so they won't induct him. He said that Mike Tenay is a great guy. He's friends with him, knows him very well, fantastic announcer, but because he was never in WWE, he doesn't think he'll get in. But Tony Schiavone was in WWE for 1 year, and he was such an iconic announcer that, I would think he could be in WWE Hall of Fame, but in AEW Hall of Fame, I would think absolutely he should be in the Hall of Fame.
They have guys they can work with, but it's just like you're still such a fresh company with so many new stars working in, and a lot of your like we said, a lot of their talent, like rinse old WWE guys who really are in the end or really haven't made it over. So it's just like, are you just putting it more in just to be spiteful? Like Sting, I can understand. Schiavone, I can understand. Jericho, I can make the argument. And same with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega.
How about Taz is another interesting name because Taz, but I would think Taz could be a WWE Hall of Famer.
He could. I think he left. He left on really bad terms.
But I mean, but again, this Vince is not in charge. If you were just going on the body of work, and I'll get to a few more comments here, and we'll say a few more things before we sign off for the evening. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. 32 people with us still, so people like what we're doing. But I will say this: I mean, he was an ECW World Champion. He won the ECW title while as a WWE employee. He was a broadcaster for quite a while. I mean, his WWE wrestling run wasn't great, but he was a pretty good announcer there for a while. I mean, I think Taz should definitely qualify as a WWE Hall of Fame. I think that he should qualify for that. I think AEW, I think they should put him in there, but I think that Taz should qualify in the WWE Hall of Fame. I think his body work stands enough for it.
I think right now with these contract situations, they could induct him. Like I think Taz would be perfect someone to be inducted in ECW. Like Joey Styles, like another person would be one to be in, especially in Philadelphia with them being ECW. Like those are people in, but I think Taz with working at W just can't do it at this time. And who knows?
Okay, that's a good answer. Let me get to a couple more names. People want to mention it here. Another person I think should be in the Hall of Fame is Hardcore Holly.
Yeah, Hardcore Holly is definitely a person who definitely did some good work, and he was with Cody when he won his first tag team championship.
Hardcore Holly. That's an interesting one because he's like to me like a borderline. I mean they let so many people in the WWE Hall of Fame. It's kind of a joke, but
that's the thing. I think someone made that comment where it's not even a real Hall of Fame because so many people have gone in and stuff, and that's.
I know people say, "Oh, Sportswire, we have so many people. All we have is 60 people, and the people that we inducted, I think 80 to 90% of them deserve to be in." But I mean, look at all seriousness, Hardcore Holly. I mean, I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, what did he win? 3 or 4 tag team titles? What was he, a hardcore champion? Had the one main event. Won a main event match with Brock Lesnar, right? Where he came back, had the arm injury. I don't think he won the Intercontinental title. I mean, he had
he was one of those guys just around there. He was pretty much there for a talent.
Yeah, I mean, the 3-time tag team champion. He was a 3-time tag champion, and he was a hardcore champion 6 times, and he won the NWA World Tag Team title once, which was in the, if you remember, the NWA run in the WWF. So we'll give him that. I mean, he was PWI number 41 in the 500 and 2000. All right. I mean, I don't know. I think he's a very borderline. I mean, he had 15 years in WWE practically. I mean, if trying to think, in hockey terms, he's like somebody that played a long time, but did you think he was a Hall of Famer?
He's
I
like
don't know.
Patrick Maroon, pretty much. We'll say
What's that?
he's like Patrick Maroon, like not at that level, but
Yeah,
like
Patrick
that kind of like
Maroon.
journeyman that's been around. He just got the Stanley and was on some good teams that won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would say like Doug Waite played for the
Yeah, that's
Islanders, right?
another
Doug
thing.
Waite was a very good player, but was he a Hall of Famer? Probably not. Let me go to TBK. He's got a good one here. Here's a name. Curious about your opinion. Fit Finley. Does Fit Finley get into the Hall of Fame? Yeah, Fit Finley. Fit Finley. I'm sorry about that. It is late. Fit Finley's a good name. Yeah, Fit Finley. Does he still work in
I think he's still
WWE?
with the company. I think he's still working
Yeah,
with
Fit
them.
Finley. I think was a WCW TV champion. Had a very good run in WCW. WWE was a part of Booker T. Remember Booker T in the
The King's Court.
King's Court.
Hornswoggle.
Hornswoggle. Yeah. Fit Finley's a go. His son is in the business still. His son is married to Tony Storm, right? Am I getting him? No, David Finley. No, Juice Roberts and David Finley's still out there. Yeah, I mean, Fit Finley trained a lot of the talent. His influence. We do a lot of European coverage. Fit Finley. That's a solid name. Solid one. I think it's a very solid name. Yeah, I don't have an issue with Fit Finley being in the Hall of Fame because he had a good run and his
He's done a
influence.
lot of great work for the company. So.
And I think we do a lot of European coverage, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say that he's probably more revered outside of the United States. So if you're going from a global impact, yeah, I think Fit Finley's a solid pick. I would put him in over Hardcore Holly. How does that sound?
Definitely.
I would put him in over Hardcore Holly. Hardcore Holly, I don't feel like he's getting in the Hall of Fame. I think that he left WWE and he hasn't come back, and I don't think that it ended the right way there. And I don't think his body of work says Hall of Fame. Fit Finley had some good work in WCW. He was a very good utility player, part of two big storylines WWE. Yeah, backstage work. Ethan's trying to sell me on Hardcore Holly. Hardcore Holly was the Randy Orton debut match. But does that get somebody in the Hall of Fame? Does that get somebody in the Hall of Fame? I don't know.
I don't think so, Ethan.
I don't feel like that's... I mean, look, I think Lex Luger to me should be in the Hall of Fame. I think Lex Luger is a slam dunk. Maybe it's some of the stuff that happened with Elizabeth. I'll say that much. And William Regal's not in the Hall of Fame.
William Regal's not, yeah, but I think because he's back working with the company, because
okay.
And then some of these people don't even want to be in the Hall. Like I think X-Pac said it much. Like he does not want to be in the Hall of Fame because he's
in it twice. I can't put X-Pac in 4 times. 1, 2, 3, kid, and X-Pac. He's already in twice. I mean, X-Pac's in already twice. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna really make him a 4-time Hall of Famer?
I think maybe just
5 times because he was 6-Pac and he had a big run there in WCW. Am I gonna put him as a 5-time Hall of Famer?
He would be the first.
I mean, you really want to play nepotism there, but I mean, I don't think X-Pac should be in more than what he's in. He's in already twice.
Yeah.
Fit Finley was number 33 on the PWI 500 in 2007. That's a good one. He was U.S. champ and he was TV champ.
He did some good work with Lashley, good work with Batista. He did good work with.
And I think what's interesting, real quick, and we'll get to a few final things. I know we'll talk a lot about Friday predictions. But he was 49 years old when he was ranked number 33 in the PWI 500. I think that's, again, I don't think WWE really monitors the PWI 500 for their Hall of Fame, but number 33 in the PWI 500 at the age of 49. You know how hard that is? That's
it is, yeah.
That's a really difficult thing. And he was ranked all time in the PWI 500, 278 all time. That was pretty impressive. And he also, again, won a bunch. It was in World of Sport. He was in the World of Sport, which if you're a true wrestling historian, you're a true wrestling fan, he was a World of Sport tag team tournament guy. I mean, he was in, so the fact that he was in World of Sport, yeah, I think that's a pretty good one. That's a good catch. Okay, obviously, before we get to closing thoughts, anything else you want to talk about before we sign off? I know we'll talk a lot on Friday, so we're going to have a lot to talk about. TBK will be back with us. The coach will be back with us, and anything else you want to share before we move on to closing?
Friday, looking forward. I know we're doing a lot of WrestleMania predictions for the match. It's always fun to predict who's going to win the outcome.
No predictions, maybe. I mean, we could talk SmackDown, but I really think it's just Go to the predictions.
Go with the prediction. Yeah,
Maybe the
SmackDown.
Andre Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Yeah, throw that in there.
If Chad Gable doesn't win that, then I don't know what he's gonna win. So
Talk about, I think the tag team championship will be fun to talk about. But yeah, I mean, talk about that. Anything else you want to go there before?
AEW, I want to talk about two things quickly.
Sure.
One with Adam Copeland promo Edge, like he said a lot of right things about yes, AEW was good for the business. It did change the business. But
Which is what Punk said in his interview. He said he was all for more opportunities, guaranteed money. He said those things.
Exactly. Like I think AEW had traded for the last so many years. It was really like before Impact had their between that run they had. It was really I think 2011 to like 2018. W was like the only place. Now you've given talent more opportunity. Look at the likes of like a Jay Cargill, like an MJF, like a Hangman Adam Page. You're giving these guys opportunity to kind of show their talent on many different levels. Daniel Garcia is another one. But I think his promo, it just felt like he was responding to the promo by what Punk's in that interview saying, well, you can say whatever you want, but we're going to respond. I just feel like, I don't know if he wanted to say that or was this kind of a mandate by Tony Khan, but I just feel it was just like you're firing back where I feel AEW and Tony Khan's problem had been so much of, we're going to say what we're doing, but when you take shots at us, we're going to come guns and blazes. Like, and I feel like WWE has. The
problem with that again is still that you're going to your base, but your base is not big enough that you need to expand your base. So that's popcorn, and that's great for the base, but the base isn't big enough. I just think that's the one problem I have with that stuff because your viewership's down.
Exactly.
Not working.
And then the one thing is Mercedes Moné announced she's going to have her first match come May at Double or Nothing, even though they have a pay-per-view coming up at the end of April. I feel like, listen, the amount of money you're paying for, you need to get every dollar. She needs to be wrestling in matches. You need to get people wanting to see her. If you're going to make people wait another 2 months or a month and a half or so to see her wrestle, how's your viewership going to go?
And that was this stalking horse that you brought in, and you're going to bring her on TV, but you're waiting for the moment. And yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. You got a month, Double or Nothing's Memorial Day weekend, I think, here in the United States, right? So you got 7 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
7 weeks. It better be a good opponent.
Exactly. It's supposed to be Julia Hart, supposed to be Willow, but TBS title. But I just feel like you're pushing it so far in advance where put her in a match. You have so much talent there. Just put her in a random match with someone. Just give her 5 minutes, 6 minutes of airtime. They did some releases the other day with talent.
I did see that, yeah.
It's just kind of funny, but I don't know if it's coincident or not. But it's just like you have talent she can work with. Don't wait long.
You're AEW releasing people. I mean, that's something we don't hear too often. That's never a good sign.
I know with Will Ospreay, like they wanted to save him, and we were able to see spurts of Will Ospreay because we saw him at Forbidden Door, then All Out, and then they saw him at the Revolution. So you kind of saw spurts of Will Ospreay before his big AEW debut. But at this point, you have her there. Why wait?
It's an excellent point. I think that I couldn't agree with you in an opening shot for Friday's show, which we'll talk more about. I have my SmackDown prediction, but we'll say prediction. I know it's late, is that Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins are going to attack The Rock and Roman Reigns after this segment.
I don't think there's going to be a segment, Ethan. I think they did their segment on Monday because they have the Hall of Fame right after. So I think both are going to be at the Hall of Fame and stuff. So I don't know if they're going to do anything.
I think Roman's inducting Paul.
Yep.
I don't know. I feel like SmackDown. I think Raw was the real go home.
Yep.
I think Raw was the go home Monday, and I think SmackDown's going to get limited stuff. And he said here, what do you think of the Rangers Devils game, Randy? 8 players gone in 2 seconds. That's got to be some sort of record.
It's fight night in New York. This is playoff hockey came early. That was awesome.
Well, I'm assuming you and Neil Villapiano were going to speak about that, right?
We recorded an episode last week. I wish we talked about it, but
well, can you go back into the tape and go re-edit? I don't know. Does that work? How does that work out?
We'll see, but damn, that was awesome. It reminded me of the Capitals and Rangers brawl a few years ago. But listen, with hockey, you want to see exciting goals, high scoring games, or fights. So you got fights in this one.
Well, you definitely got some fights, but the New Jersey Devils continue to their slide, and they're certainly going to be going to see what draft position they're going to have in the NHL draft, because now they've hit to NHL 500, which isn't really saying much these days. So they're pretty much looking more at the golf course after April 14th, and the Rangers continue their run, hopefully to a deep run for their standpoint into the Stanley Cup. And the Islanders, like I said, have won a couple games in a row, and they're chasing your Capitals, so we'll have to see what happens there. But yeah, hockey, maybe we have some guys there on the TSF takes. Maybe we'll talk some hockey. We did a little bit of hockey on Friday's show after you left, so maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. Maybe we'll bring you back on even at some point during the show for some hockey. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, good catch, TBK. Good to be with everybody here. A lot of people still tuned in. Thank you, everybody, to Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. A lot of new people subscribed to us the last few days on YouTube. I can't thank enough, obviously, our friends over at GTS. I can't thank enough Rad Dad Radley Belmont, obviously the guys at the Five Town Sound men's soccer program. Got to get this in real quick. Definitely, we had a clip which hit 2,150 views on Instagram and counting still. We had two guys on, the Wong brothers, Saeed and Adrian Wong, and they're actually recording some music, and we're going to play some of it on Sportswire Radio during the week. We're inducting them into the Hall of Fame as well, and they basically had a clip with yours truly that went viral, so people seem to be liking what we're doing, and we'll talk more about that on Friday's show. But Randy, I give you the floor. I give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? And the floor is yours, and had a lot of fun.
Thanks, Tom. Always a pleasure being on, making time for me. I'll keep it short and sweet. And I always say this around this time of year. It's great wrestling to watch. It's an exciting WrestleMania weekend. Always an exciting weekend to watch. If you're WWE, AEW, like just enjoy the wrestling, enjoy the experience. Like it's going to be a great show. Just enjoy. If you want to complain about it on Twitter, just go about WWE and just go watch Collision with 200 other people.
Well, I always continue to say maybe we'll get AEW on Sportswire. We'll pick them up here, but we'll certainly see. I want everybody to follow Randy Dillon, first and last name, on Instagram and Twitter. You can see that they're very simple. And TBK is doing some logo work. Check him out on Instagram as well. And Ethan Sorensen, thank you very much. And Randy, looking forward to Friday. This was kind of fun, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot on our predictions Friday, see where we end up. And thank you so much for all that you do for us, and can't wait for Friday. We're actually not too far away from it now.
Thanks, Tom. Always a pleasure. Looking forward to Friday.
Amen to that. And that was Randy Dillon. He is the host of the Hockey Fan Chat, a member of our Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, and he is also here, our resident senior wrestling analyst. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters here on Sportswire Radio. And I'm going to be back here today with coverage coming up with UKW wrestling legend Mustafa Khan. Mustafa Khan, a man that has done it all. He's done movies. He's done martial arts. He's been a huge staple of UKW for years upon years. He is a wrestling legend, a UK wrestling legend, and he is here live with us on Sportswire Radio, and it's going to be a real treat to have him on here. All of our platforms, he's going to talk about his career, his journey, and what he thinks about the current state of wrestling, especially in the UK. So you will not want to miss that one. So please make sure you tune in. We'll have on Mustafa Khan, the legendary Mustafa Khan, here on all Sportswire Radio platforms. So definitely we'll see how my voice holds up. But it's that time of year. It's the silly season. It's April, and wrestling is the biggest time of the year. And we're doing all we can to cover it here on Sportswire Radio. But thank you so much. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, on the number one collaboration that is Sportswire Radio, where all wrestling matters. And I'll see you in a little while for Mustafa Khan.